Hi, my name is Mallory Farrell, and this is my project 2 for educational psychology. We're going to talk about Lawrence Kohlberg and Erik Erikson. Lawrence Kohlberg was born on October 25th, 1927 in Bronxville, New York. His parents were married Alfred Kohlberg and Charlotte Albrecht. He married Lucy Stigberg in 1955, and he had 2 sons. He died in 1987 from suicide. He struggled with depression, and through his travels, he had contracted a parasite in Belize in 1971. And there's a picture of him on the side. The road to his moral theory. He attended the University of Chicago, and he received his bachelor's degree in just 1 year. He has a PhD in psychology from the University of Chicago in 1958. His dissertation was based on his research into moral choices of boys and how they led to a life devoted to the exploration of moral and ethical development in young people. In 1959, Kohlberg joined the staff at Yale University as an assistant professor, and he went back to the University of Chicago in 1962, where he worked as an assistant professor. He was over the child psychology training program. And the remainder of his career was spent at the Professor of Education and Social Psychology at Harvard. Over here I've included a model of Piaget's theory of development because Kohlberg based most of his theory off of Piaget's. So for Kohlberg's theory of moral development, it was influenced by Jean Piaget's stage-based theory, and he expanded on Piaget's 2 stages, identifying 6 stages of moral development. He argued that correct moral reasoning was the most significant factor in moral decision-making, and that correct moral reasoning would lead to ethical behavior. And he believed that individuals progress through stages of moral development just as they progress through stages of cognitive development. The 3 categories are pre-moral, conventional, and principled. And in stage 1, we have punishment and avoidance and obedience. Stage 2, exchange of favors. Stage 3, good boy versus good girl. Stage 4, law and order. Stage 5, social contract. And Stage 6, universal ethical principle. So the components for the pre-conventional morality, Stage 1, obedience and punishment. This is the earliest stage of moral development, and it's common in young children, but adults are also capable of expressing this type of reasoning. Children see rules as fixed and absolute. They obey the rules to avoid punishments, and they make the moral decisions based on what they want to do, and they will disobey the rules if they don't think they'll get caught. Stage 2, individualism and exchange. Children account for individual points of view and judge actions based on how they serve individual needs. They recognize that other people have needs, but they put their needs above everybody else. Stage 3, interpersonal relationships. These are referred to as the good boy, good girl orientation. It's living up to the social expectations and roles. And they make decisions to please others, and they want to maintain relationships. Stage 4, maintaining social order. People begin to consider society as a whole when they make judgments. They focus on maintaining law and order and following the rules. They view it as doing one's duty and respecting authority. They look at society for behavior guidelines, and they view rules as unchangeable. Stage 5, social contract and individual rights. People begin to account for the differing values, opinions, and beliefs of other people. Rules of law are still important for maintaining society, but they realize that rules can be changed. And Stage 6 is universal principles. It's based on the ethic principles and abstract reasoning. People follow the principles of justice, even if they conflict with laws and rules. You start answering to your conscience. Now we have Erik Erikson. He was born on June 15, 1902 in Germany. His mother was Carla Abrahamson. She was married, but she had been separated when she became pregnant. When Erik was born, she did give him her husband's name, and then he was later adopted by her second husband. He married Joan Erikson in 1930, and they have 4 children, and he died May 12, 1994 in Massachusetts, and there's a picture of him. Road to the Theory. After graduating high school, he went to art school in Munich, and he dropped out and worked as a traveling artist. While he was working as a traveling artist, he was offered a position to tutor at the school where Sigmund Freud's daughter Anna was conducting psychoanalysis studies. He worked with Anna and various others while studying psychoanalysis, and he also studied Montessori's educational methods. He was a professor at Harvard, Yale, and Berkeley, and he never got a bachelor's degree. His degree in psychoanalysis studies and in Montessori's education were the only degrees that he has. And he was the first child psychoanalyst in Boston. Over to the side, I have Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. This is because it's Erikson's stages. The theory component, stage 1, trust versus mistrust, occurs from 0 to 18 months, is the most fundamental stage of life. The goal is to develop trust, and developing trust is dependent on the maternal relationship. If the mother rejects the child, she becomes a source of frustration instead of pleasure, and the child will develop a sense of mistrust that can carry on into adulthood. Stage 2, autonomy versus doubt, which occurs at 18 months to 3 years. Around age 2, children begin to start the shift towards autonomy. They want to do things by themselves. When parents allow their children to do this, but are also present to provide guidance, the child develops a sense of autonomy. If the parents are harsh and controlling, then the child could develop doubt. Stage 3, initiative versus guilt, is ages 3 to 6 years old. And during this stage, children are still using their motor and language skills to help explore their environment. Parents can help foster a sense of initiative by encouraging their child to run, jump, throw balls. And the parents who are harsh and punish their children for doing these things can have their child develop guilt, and that'll be for the child's natural urges. Stage 4 is industry versus inferiority. It's ages 6 to 12 years old. Children begin to expand their social worlds. They tend to go to school, so the parent involvement tends to kind of decrease. And when children are successful, they develop a sense of industry. When they fail, they develop a sense of inferiority. Identity versus role confusion, ages 12 to 18 years old. At this stage, children are developing into adolescence. Parent involvement tends to decrease. Peer groups tend to be the biggest influence at this time. Children trying to figure out who they are, and this is why the teenage years are considered a period of experimentation. If they learn who they are, they could develop their sense of identity. If they continue to change it and aren't sure of who they are, they could fall into role confusion. Intimacy versus isolation occurs during young adulthood. This is where the focus is trying to find someone to share their life with. Relationships should support both partners and help them grow without stunning one another. Isolation becomes a risk when they fail at relationships or refuse to search for new ones. Our last two stages are generativity versus self or absorption. This occurs during middle adulthood. One way to reach generativity is to raise children of your own. If a failure occurs, a sense of stagnation develops, and that leads to self-absorption. And lastly, we have integrity versus despair. This occurs in late adulthood, and this is the acceptance of accomplishments, failures, and the new limitations of old age. How they develop a new sense of integrity when one realizes that everything that has happened has been their own choice. Despair develops when one regrets the way that they may have lived their life. Thank you.